writer, Natasha Khullar Relph. So actually, in all seriousness, folks, she has one of the coolest newsletters, like writing newsletters. I think I read day in and day out. If you really want to know what's going on in the writing world, there are very few resources as good as hers. So definitely go check her newsletter. I'll have to actually do a proper advertisement at the end of the show. But I've known her. Shit, it's been 2 years, isn't it? About 2 years? 3 years?
Has it been 2 years? I thought it, yeah, it has.
2 years. 2 years off and on, right? So, I'm going to tell you this is what I've learned about freelancing. This is what I've learned in 3 years of doing it. Do you want to hear my magical secret?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Let's see if I agree. I'm going to give you marks out of,
It's really all about confidence. That's what it comes down. That's really what it comes down to. That's all it is.
Yep.
If you had told me that at the start, I'm like, that's it? Shit, I can make an ass of myself.
Well, the thing is, I do tell people this at the start, but you have to learn it in your own way. You have to come to it on your own, right? Because you're like, well, that's too, most of this stuff is like, oh no, that's too simple, that's too easy. No, you have to stand up for yourself. No, you have to trust yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your work. We've heard all of this before, but you have to learn it for yourself, because when you first come to it, you think you know nothing, but actually you know more than you think you do.
You're not, it's like you don't know who you are in this space. That's the thing, right? So for me,
you might not know who you are, period. And actually, I think writing is a great way to find that out as well.
Art in general. Actually, I don't think it's just a writing thing. I think it's art in general, because really it doesn't matter whether it's acting, music. I'm just going to turn this up while we're live, because again, trained professional folks, they can work for this. But what it is what I realize is when you're doing like any kind of art, you're telling a story ultimately. And at some point when you this is one of the big major turning keys, is you realize that what you're really doing is you're telling your story. Doesn't matter what the trappings are. It's your story. It's your progress, your journey, your growth. And because the concepts have been done to death, doesn't matter what it is, right? There's very few new original takes, right? They come around once in a while, but they're rare, right? So what happens is, this is really about how you tell this story in this environment, in this way. That is the heart of all storytelling. But to be able to do that, you have to understand just at some point who you are. And I think it doesn't matter whether you're a writer, a musician, or a actor, or a illustrator, it doesn't matter. You got to find what works for you. And it's because it's you, ultimately, you're the final product.
Yeah. And also you can have many different takes on a topic, but your take is unique to you. And I think that's the key to it, that you're going to come at it from an angle that, somebody else might have, but you're going to bring your own unique experiences, your own unique thoughts, your own unique stories to it. And so that's what makes it different.
Exactly. Well, that's it. Like it again, and I know this sounds so fucking simple. It's not. You have to be it requires an honesty with yourself. And that usually means all of us have to face our fears somewhere.
We come to that confidence again, right? Because it's like you have to have the confidence in yourself to say, my version of this story matters, that it's worth telling, that there's somebody out there who might need to hear it in this particular way, or I want to tell it in this particular way, and I'm going to take control of that. I am going to tell it regardless. And that's confidence. That's back to where we started.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I had a guest last night. We were drawing. I floored her like 3 straight times. And I said the same thing. It does matter, because you matter. It doesn't matter how many people there are on the planet. You matter.
Yep.
Your view is unique. So you have to unlock that and let that go. Like I said, this is the biggest thing I've learned, right? And then I've learned how to get tough and how to say no, which is the second thing you have to learn how to do.
Confidence, again. You have to have the confidence to be able to trust that you can say no and be okay.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I interview people, right? So I had the opportunity. I had a kind of an opportunity. I don't do 10-minute interviews because they suck. Like, let's be honest, they suck, right? They really suck. So I had this opportunity to interview someone I've wanted to interview for a long time. They were only doing the 10-minute thing. I turned it down. I just said,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't want 10 minutes.
It's not my brand. It's not my vibe. It's not what I do, right?
But yeah, I want an hour. It's like, I want an hour. I don't
Yeah.
want 10 minutes. And if that's the case, I'm just going to pass. And they're like, whoa, it's like, yeah, no, that's where I'm at. You got to come on my terms.
Your what you want to do matters as much as what they want to do. And if you can't come to an agreement, that is
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's fine. So that's what I've learned.
I love that. I think that's great. I think that's how it should be. It's because we sometimes make ourselves small, and we can move into like publishing from that conversation. But
actually we should, because I also had an epiphany about agents too, actually not too long ago, and I realized something very I have a slightly different strategy to looking for agents now than I did before.
Okay.
I'll see if you
are you looking for agents? Are you
I'm debating it. I have a story I think that would fit traditional publishing very well. Like it just would fit.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I wouldn't do this with every story, but this story I think has a legitimate shot. But this is what I realized. Right. Again, this goes back to just personal branding and stuff like that. If my agent completely goes down a completely different path than I do, as a general rule of thumb, even if it's the same genre, the same field, I want nothing to do with them, because it's not that I think they're bad. They'd be bad.
No,
they would be bad.
It's not right for you.
Yeah. And it's like, so when I look, for example, I had Marissa May on the show not too long ago, like almost 100 episodes ago, but for me, that's like 4 months ago. So that's right. Yeah. So, she's fun, right? She's really fun. Now, her agent might be someone I'd look at, because I like the kind of books they do. And again, I generally like, of their clientele, I can relate to those clientele a certain way. There are certain, right? Like, for example, I'm not saying anything bad about it. Like, I'm not very heavy into going all in on the LGBT, like it's not my brand. I'm not saying I'm not saying I don't believe in human rights. I do. It's just, I'm not going to be that guy that crusades. It's just not who I am.
Yeah.
Some agents are really big on that right now. Some are into other things, other causes, or political leanings that, politically, I'm an atheist. That sounds funny, but it's like, I'm a moderate. I probably lean slightly more right than left, but even I'm a moderate. So I don't want to pursue political agendas. I just want to tell the best stories I can. Yeah. So the agent I would look for would fit into that. I'm a moderate too.
Do you know what? I find it so interesting. It's so telling about the industry that you don't write political fiction or nonfiction, and yet you're having to think of this when choosing. And I think that's telling of the industry, because it's like, why should this even be an issue? If you're writing politically, I understand that's something you should consider. But the fact that you're not actually writing about those issues and then you're having to consider it is fundamentally a problem.
I agree. No, I absolutely agree with you. But I also realize that this is the game I'm playing too. Well, right, this is the game I'm playing. The reason I'm thinking about it, and the reason why I'm talking about it in these things, it's not that there are people that genuinely care about these things. I'm not one of those people. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And therefore, I shouldn't be working with people that, at least in this regard, that care in those things. Now, that doesn't mean I can't work with these people in other projects. But again, but it's just, and I say it like that, not because, and folks, I'm not saying that these people aren't wonderful. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what's very important is, when you're putting yourself out there as a quote unquote brand, you kind of have to realize what you stand for personally when you're not doing stuff, right? And you have to realize that there are some people in the community that stand for other things. And so you have to respect that space, and also realize that's not you. It's just not. And it's unfortunately the reality of the business today.
Yeah, I mean, if you write LGBTQ plus books, I mean, you're obviously going to find those agents. But if you don't, then you're not part of the conversation. You don't have to force yourself into that conversation. That would be the best thing ever. It's not who you are, and you're not really required to be there. So take yourself out. I mean, I think that's part of the problem, is that people will insert themselves in where they're not
exactly
needed, is because it's a trend, and it's a trend, or trans is a trend, or Black Lives Matter is a trend, so now we're all about that. And that happened a lot in publishing in 2020, where a lot of agents picked up a lot of Black authors who they then dropped immediately 2 years down the line. And I think that is a real,
it's the reality of the business. No, it's the real reality of the business, because this is the other, and saying this as I'm going at least a little bit dabbling. I think personally where I'm going to end up is probably a small press. Like I love.
Well, that's completely different. Yeah. But you don't need an agent for a small press anyway.
Well, you do for some of the traditional small presses. Yeah. Like there's some, like there's a few of them. Like I love what Angry Robot's doing. Like I love the stuff that they're doing. I love some of this, some of those publishers. An agent definitely does not hurt you, right? So, right. But I'm that's where I feel, for one, I like experimenting with different stuff. They play. Also, they market better. Like the honest truth is, they actually market better. I've seen Big Five marketing. Some of it is scary. Depending on who you are, she's smiling. It's a little scary. It's a little scary sometimes. This is all you're giving me? Yeah. It's like, right. So
I think at the end, I mean, it's funny that we're talking about this, because the last time we spoke, I was still kind of pursuing the traditional model, and you were like, why? And now I think it's kind of turned a little bit, where you're
little bit. I trust me, I'm doing lots of stuff independently.
I'm still open to everything, but I kind of feel like, I think for me, and this is where the newsletter comes in, and for me, everything comes down to this, is how can writers be empowered? It doesn't matter what decision you're taking. I want people to feel empowered in the decision they're making. If they feel like they want to go traditional and that is the best choice for them, they absolutely should 100% pursue that, but knowing that they remain in their power and they're not making compromises with either the work or with who they are. And that's where we got to this conversation initially, where I was like, we make ourselves small sometimes so that we can be approved by other people. And that happens a lot with authors, because the traditional publishing setup is this way, and so in order to fit in, I have to twist myself into a pretzel, and I've totally done this. And then at the end of it, you go, what?
Why?
It doesn't look like what I thought it would look like. It doesn't feel good to me. And if it doesn't feel good and it doesn't look like what I want it to look like, then what is the point? So asking those questions is really important.
And this is where I completely hope to say, like, where I won't compromise is me.
Yeah.
That's where I won't compromise. I can't. It won't work. It just won't work. Like I might get.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
It doesn't long term. If you, I mean, I think it depends on who you are as a person and how strongly you are guided by your, I guess, your own beliefs and desires about yourself. But in the long term, if you continue going against what you actually know to be true, but I'm maybe denying, have I gotten? I think.
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. My screen is frozen, so I just wasn't sure what's happening.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We'll all right, keep going. Sorry.
But in the long term, you end up, and this has happened to authors over decades of their careers, where they end up in a place and they're like, well, I'm not making the money I want. I don't have the control I want. I'm not writing the stories I want. I'm not getting to experiment in the way that I want. I might have some publishing success, but at what cost? And I think it's important to remember that, like, if you can choose before, if you can kind of think of all of that beforehand, if you can say, okay, what do I want my career to look like? In an ideal world, this is all going to be work, so what do I, at the end of it, want it to look like? Do I want to make more money? Do I want to write a number of books? I mean, some people want to write 100 books. Some people want to make money. Some people just want to write for art. Some people just want to write one novel and have that published. So what are your goals? And then kind of thinking through, what sort of system allows me to meet those goals, rather than saying, let me pick traditional publishing and then mold myself into it, or let me pick indie and mold myself into that, when I don't actually know anything about marketing and I'm not willing to learn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a fun conversation about that actually the other day. There's a gentleman on Facebook going, I'm looking for reasonable advertising fees. And I looked, I do create advertising assets for people too, because again, I'm a big believer in your personal story being almost as important as the product you have, because in the long term, that's what's going to draw people to you.
Yeah.
So I looked at him, it's like, so define a reasonable fee. And he gave this very incredibly vague answer. And then they would go, well, and then someone else goes, well, they should be paying on percentage. I'm like, you realize how much time goes into this? Like, do you have you really thought about that? Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, I think like one of the things I've learned about the advertising end of things is, right, a lot of authors take it for granted. And I'm not saying it should be the biggest top priority, but a certain percentage of your time every day probably should be going there somewhere. Yeah. Right. I have a big ass mouth. That's why we're here. And right. But it's an advertisement too, right? It's an advertisement.
Yeah. It's building your brand however you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So this is advertising. It's not like, please buy my stuff at this point at night. Like it's not that kind of advertising. But it is I'm putting myself out there, and you're putting yourself out there. That's why you're here too. I have an audience. You have an audience. We meet. We talk. We talk for however long we're going to talk. And people will have a better sense of who you are, a better sense of who I am, right? And that's important. Like getting yourself out there each and every day, at least in some capacity, goes a long way. Now, again, it doesn't have to be social media, although again, everybody has some. It can be a newsletter, and probably everybody should have a newsletter. Note to self. Actually, I gotta ask this: like with MailChimp going the way it's going, where do you recommend?
Why MailChimp?
No. MailChimp's no longer has that free service for a lot of authors starting.
Oh, right. So, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying MailChimp's the big. It's usually the first choice for getting started. What do you think of something like Substack, for example?
Yeah, I do have a lot of thoughts on all of that. I think MailChimp, at the end of the day, if you're a writer and you're using a service, I mean, they have the right to, charge. So fair enough. Most of the others do. MailChimp has been free for so long, for up to, I think it was 2,000 subscribers. So they've decided to change that, and that's fine. I mean, I always think of like, well, I'm not going to be at the 2,000 mark anyway for long. I mean, I always thought that early on as well. Like it's not an issue because I'm just going to cross that so quickly. But
I love you. I love you.
So, like just think of the ultimate, like where do you want to be, and then make your choices for service that way, like where, in 2 years or 1 year, this won't be a conversation that will matter. So it doesn't matter. Don't obsess over it. If you can find service, great. But if not, then, give it a go. I mean, it is a service and you are using it, so fair enough. But you could, there are free services like Substack that you can use. I don't have an issue with Substack. I think they're great. I think they're bringing out really new features, and I think it's all good. But it depends on what you plan to do with that newsletter. It is very limited, Substack, in terms of like the control you have as in terms of the technology, but also in terms of, at the moment you can access your audience, but the way they're going with the app and everything, it used to be that Substack said we serve writers, and now they have shifted that to we serve readers, and readers should be served, and that's all great. But as a creator, I want to know that I can always access my audience, that they don't have to go to an app to read my work, because that is the problem with social media in general, that when you are on rented land, you don't own that audience. Like we've seen this with Facebook, we've seen this with Instagram, we've seen this with everywhere, that they can cut off your access to your audience straight away. I'm on ConvertKit. I can download my email addresses of my audience anytime I like. And that is what I'm paying for, the access to my audience. Now on Substack, that is true at the moment. A lot of people seem to think that could change in the future, but also in terms of the technology, if I want to give out freebies, or if I want to create funnels or automated marketing for my books, I can't do that through Substack. I can't automate some of the email series that I would like to do for my books. And so there is a technological limit there as well.
So for me, what I like about Substack is that's where all the good journalism stuff is. Yeah. Like, that journalism has a very interesting life in there. Like again, one of the most interesting things about like what I've learned about social media in the last couple of years is what they're all good at. Like what they're all good at. Like
Yeah.
Facebook is still the best advertising place. Whether we want to admit it or not, it's still the best one. Twitter is probably if you're in the media, is the best journalist site. And the only reason I say it's not because of all the wonderful things that come with Twitter.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it's the fact that you can go to any event in the world if you really want to, and you can look it up, and you can literally get a minute by minute update.
So I think the question is, are we talking as a reader or a consumer or a creator? Because you know,
absolutely.
If you're talking as a reader, or a consumer, I absolutely agree with all of that. As a creator, I think it depends on what your goals are.
I also what kind of creator you are too. Like for example, for Twitter, I think if you're more on a journalistic bent, you kind of have to be there. But if you're like on a more creative writing bent,
I don't think you have to be anywhere, honestly. I think you can decide to be there from a place of power, but I never feel like I have to be anywhere. And I'm not. And I still manage to build my audience. I still manage to make a great income as a freelancer, as a journalist. And I'm not on. I had a Twitter account and it got hacked, and then I couldn't get it back. It was a verified account that I couldn't get back. So I started.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I don't. Again, this is where my mistrust of like.
I don't blame you. Like this stuff can go.
I had a verified account, so it should that should have been easy to get back. And
just real question: pre-Musk or post-Musk?
Pre.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm actually thinking of like post-Musk, trying to see, because now the security is so lack. I'm wondering if I just emailed them and said, "Give me access," would they give me access? So possibly not.
Flip a coin.
But the point
it depends on the day.
Flip a coin. A verified account that got hacked, and then I could not get back, and it's still there. It's still just sitting there empty, and I can do nothing with it. So I started a new account, and I have 500 followers or something, and it doesn't matter, because you know what? I realized when I lost the account that I had done the smart thing of having my audience on my newsletter, which meant that actually I had no fallout from that. And so. And journalistically, yes, everybody's kind of convinced that that's what you have to do. You have to be on those social medias. I haven't, and my career's been just fine. I go there if I want to. I don't feel like I have to do anything, because if I do something from a place of I have to, I'm not going to show up in the way that I need to in order to get the results anyway. So when I do show up to any kind of social media, and I am actually now planning to get back on social media, but I will do it in my way, and I'll do it because I want to, and because it's something that feels aligned to me, not because like, oh, if I don't do it, I will suffer or some.
Well, I don't really feel like I will suffer. The only reason I said it quite like that was the speed and access of information that happens.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
fair enough.
That's the only thing.
I suppose again the difference between posting and reading, because I am on Twitter to get information and maybe contact. You know, it was great to get sources through Twitter as well. Like as a journalist, like access to sources was less now, but very amazing.
That's why that's the only like. Now, again, if you want to avoid it for every other reason under the planet, I don't blame you. Like I'm secretly plotting, or not so secretly plotting, to get off most social medias at this point.
I love. Right. I'm planning a comeback, because I've been off social media for 3 years, and it's been great for my mental health. I have to say, I stepped back for my mental health, and I was just like, I can't deal with the constant barrage of abuse, and it was too much. And
really?
it was quite. Yeah, I was quite. I was posting daily on social media, and I have a business, and I was, you know, just all sorts of things. So there was a 2018 to 2019 period where it just got a bit too much, where everybody had an issue with everything for a while, and it was like you couldn't speak without getting some sort of pushback. And I think I just realized that I was writing books at the time, and I just thought, you know what, I need space to be able to focus on my novel. I don't need this. And so I pulled back a little bit, but now I'm ready to dive in again. But I forgot my original point, but I think it's like, now that I'm coming in back to social media, I think I'm coming in with a strategy of what do I want to say and why am I here, rather than just being here for the sake of being here.
I do the same thing. Like with all my social media, I do different things. I'm on the ones I'm on the most are Facebook, Instagram,
In your Instagram.
Twitter,
Yeah.
Twitter. I know you've seen some of the stuff I post on my Instagram, right? Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn. Because
Yeah.
for what I do, again, these make sense to me. I'm trying to play with TikTok, but I get the feeling this is my theory with TikTok with me. I'm going to lose my patience with it. That's my theory with me because it looks like, and I say this with all due respect, it looks like it cripples attention spans. Like watching the content, some of the content you're watching there, just like I think this cripples attention spans.
It
I'm not,
probably, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, definitely does.
yeah.
I love TikTok as a consumer. I'm on TikTok. I have a 10-year-old, so you kind of avoid
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah. So
You just sit there and you'll
that's
watch like dog and cat videos all day long.
that's the perfect. That is the perfect app for like a 10-year-old. I'm not even kidding. Like it is the
Yeah, it's
absolute
great.
perfect. Yeah, it's the
But it's
perfect app.
funny. TikTok is, or has been until now, it's chill. There's no drama. It's chill. It's
Oh yeah,
fun. If the algorithm gives you what you want, and for me, that's like dog and cat videos. And so I have like a
awesome.
feed full of like funny dog and cat videos, which is all I need to be happy. So
Nothing wrong with that.
so it's great. As a consumer, I think it's amazing. As a creator, I don't think I'm going to be on TikTok because it doesn't serve my goals. And I really do come down to like as a writer, as a creator, if I'm somewhere and spending time away from my writing, away from my child, away from anything, I want to know why I'm there. What is the purpose of it? And I think for me now, it's about if I'm on TikTok, it's probably to sell books.
Yes.
And then if it's to sell books, then do I have to build an audience on TikTok directly to sell books? Or could I tap into people's existing audiences? And so for me, I feel like it's far easier and better and more profitable when I'm ready to do it is to tap into other people's audiences than to try and create one from scratch of my own.
Actually, that is the way to do it. Like a lot of like there are people I've noticed that like they have the followings,
Yeah.
but they don't have the views.
Yeah.
I don't really have much of a following there, but again, I'm not like viral or anything, but I've had a few videos. I've had a few videos where there's nothing, and then I have videos where I've broken 1,000 views, and it's just people. It's about the engagement. It has nothing to do with how big your audience is. So
I think it's also about, are you having fun? Do you enjoy it? Because I would hate to just have to do a TikTok every day. Whereas I love to write, Twitter threads would be great for me. Because I like to write, and most writers, right? So I think that would be a channel that would be great for me. I think writing long Facebook posts is great for me. And I've done that in the past as well, because it's so easy and effortless for me and I enjoy it. So if then I get 0 likes or if I get no engagement, it doesn't matter, I enjoyed it. But if I do, that's great. But if I don't, I'm not feeling like I'm wasting my time. Whereas if I had to force myself to get on TikTok every day and then I didn't get the views, it would feel like a waste of my time because I'm only doing it for the views.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with you. I don't know. I don't know if I would enjoy TikTok long term. I think I could do some silly stuff. I think there's an interesting storytelling things you can do on TikTok, but I don't know if I wanted to do something. I could do a finite project on TikTok, and I might actually try something like that because again, it's just one of those. I think it'd be really cool. Actually, I just had this really good idea. I think it'd be fun. Get a whole bunch of writers to like basically start a story on one account and then continue. That would be a lot of fun, right? And let the story evolve even based on the algorithms a little bit. So everybody kind of knows. So it'd be almost like a magic whisper story, right?
Yeah.
Right. We would label it so people can find it. But besides that,
you come up with your own hashtag or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like that's fun. It'd probably get engagement, and it's just a fun. I think everybody should try things. I don't think people should just be like, I don't like video, therefore I'm never going to do TikTok. I think people should definitely try because you never know. You might like really get into it, and you might really enjoy it. But if you've tried it and you don't enjoy it, then I don't recommend staying on something because I mean, I work with a lot of writers, and many of them like they've forced themselves to be on a platform, and then they're getting no results, and then you say, well, something else is more suited to your personality. Why don't you try that? And then they're suddenly enjoying it and they're showing up more and they don't have to force themselves to do it, which means just as a result, they're going to get more engagement anyway, because A, their energy is great. They're enjoying themselves. And B, they show up more because they're not having to force themselves and like, you know, to do the drudgery of I'm working or I'm, you know,
Yeah,
hustling.
I mean, like putting yourself out there can be a super lot of fun. You can make a complete ass of yourself in the good way, and people will enjoy it. Or you can be positive. You can be hell. You can even be miserable. If as long as you're genuinely entertaining about being miserable, people will follow you.
You have to
Right?
own
So,
it. You have to
yeah,
own
exactly.
you have to own who you are and then be comfortable with who you are. And I think that is the thing that takes, I mean, at least it took for me quite a while to do that publicly. I mean, I was always, you know, in freelance contracts and stuff, it's easier to do. It's like, yeah, one-on-one conversation. But when you have to show up publicly and you have to own something that people might disagree with or that people might take issue with, or that people just need to react to because that's what we do. It's a bit harder to hold that, and that's why it's actually great practice to do that on social media, especially before your book comes out, because you know, if you're a writer, you're gonna get some, you know, like you're putting yourself out there in very personal ways. Like even if you write fiction, you're revealing a lot of yourself all the time, so get used to that vulnerability.
That's right. When you're writing a story, it doesn't matter what it is. You're
Yep.
writing your story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the truth. And if you can understand that, you'll get a clarity in your work that very few. Again, it gives you a huge advantage. I
Well,
say it.
Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this, and she says she's written a number of memoirs, right? And she says her novels are more honest than the memoirs because the memoirs have been curated and thought through and everything. Whereas with the novels, she'll let things slip that are just like
Yeah,
covered by
absolutely.
fiction. And so her novels are actually more true than her memoirs because she's been raw in her fiction because she's protected. Whereas with the novels, she's had to curate them and edit them and make sure that they're palatable.
Everything I've learned about marketing, I swear I learned from watching professional wrestling. I know it sounds really silly, but honestly,
You should write a blog or an article.
I know I did. So Macho Man Randy Savage is my all time favorite wrestler. And like he's your time. So you might have seen something of his, right? He used to be the guy on do the commercials, like the snap into a Slim Jim, snap into a Slim Jim. Ooh yeah, and snap into it, right?
I have no idea.
No, okay, it's cool. It's cool. It's so cool. But the thing about like I love the old 1980s interview segments, not the current stuff. Current stuff has it's some good stuff, but the old when they were in the back and doing like you have an announcer interviewing about this match, it's the silliest thing you'll ever watch. I'm gonna go kick this guy's ass, brother. Right? It says it's silly stuff. But then I realized and it's the epitome of it. The best people in that era believed in their characters. So they would go out there and they would be some form of themselves. They knew who they were. They knew who they weren't. The best ones. And they just projected what they were. Savage is my personal favorite because he was so out there. Like he's just so out there. But he was so genuine in that you could not help but like the guy. Right. So
Yeah.
right. That's what it like again, all of this today, especially, I think the biggest thing about the last few years, a lot of us are tired of bullshit.
Yep.
Right?
I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking that that's the thing. You have to, if you are going to be on social media and you're going to build a brand around being you, then be you, you know, then truly be you, warts and all, because I think we can all see through the bullshit. We can all see through the curation. We can all see through it. That doesn't connect you to anybody. Nobody's buying that. So, you know, I think we sometimes don't give people credit for being smart. People are, you know, it's not even like you don't even have to logically know that somebody's bullshitting you. You can feel it. So it's like, don't, you know, if you really want people to buy into you, then show them who you are. And that's been, I mean, I came onto the internet in 2002. It was a long time ago. That's when I started my first newsletter.
Yeah.
And that's how it became popular. I mean, I was in India. I was a college student. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just came on and started talking about how I was trying to become a freelancer and trying to break into these publications and trying to quit a job and all this. And it was just raw and real. And I would share the rejections. I still do. I share the rejections. I share the heartbreaks. I share the mistakes. I share the like, what the fuck, why would I do this moments. What was that was an interesting life choice.
Legitimately, there's some of my favorite things about you, because not because I want to see you mess up, but you're a great lesson in accountability.
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, you're a fantastic lesson in accountability, because it's like, you don't offer any excuses. You're entertaining how you tell the story sometimes. So you're very entertaining, right? But you don't bullshit. You're like, this is what I've learned, and it's great. Like I said,
you have to take ownership, otherwise you're going to make the same mistakes over and over again, and I don't have time for that.
I like that. I like that. That you should quote. That is actually fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, but it's true, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like, are you going to spend the next 20 years making the same mistake that you made 20 years ago? How are we going to grow?
I have seen that. I have seen that with some people. I go back. So I don't know if it was like for you when you go back home, right? But I'm from Ontario, Canada. I'm from London, like not the good London, Ontario, Canada. Okay, you're the good London. I'm sincerely hoping.
Well, we're meeting in the good London. We already decided.
Yeah. So no, we're going to meet in the good London. No, I would not dream of taking you to the other London. I'd be like, no, I'll come to you. Don't worry about it.
That bad.
No. Okay. So London, Ontario. This is the thing about London, Ontario. When you go there, this is what's going to happen in the back of your mind. You're going to notice two things. There's really nice things surrounded by a lot of things that aren't so nice, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, that's the first thing. You'll see it. You'll be like, oh my God, this is almost like window dressing, right? Almost, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, you will have this is the impression you will have of London. Ontario is, you will say, there's got to be more here, because there should be, like, legitimately there should be, and there's not, and you don't understand why. It's just one of those, you're like, there should be something else here. Why isn't there something else? Like, it just doesn't fully compute. And when you go to any other city for a long time and you go back, you just realize it more and more. But there are people there, I swear to God, there are people there that were talking about the exact same things they were talking about when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did you do that? Like legitimately, like, how? But again, I realize that might sound very, their life's not mine. I've seen a lot and done a lot, and I realize that. But still, sometimes it's amazing to me, right? It either comes to two, like, there are two possibilities. They're very self-aware and very passionate about what they're talking about, or they're very unself-aware and have no idea that they've been doing the same thing over. And I'm not sure which is which. I think it's the latter, but sometimes.
Yeah. It's interesting when you said you have this when you go back home. I thought you were going to take it in a different direction, which I'll take it now, which is that, when you go back home sometimes, and it's been a while since you went back home, and all the people you knew who knew you, let's say 5 years ago, they still remember the version of you that was 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've changed and you've grown, and you're like, well, no, I don't think like that anymore. I don't do that shit anymore.
That's actually happened this time around. Like, I'm back in Calgary for, like, getting ready to do the crazy travel stuff.
Yeah.
And this time around has been that, right? Because one of the reasons I'm leaving is, honestly, I haven't been able to connect with the people I knew prior to very much. It's been very, I don't know what it's like in England, but I don't know, since the pandemic, actually, this is a legitimate question. Have people been more isolated since the pandemic, or have they come together more?
I don't know. I live in Brighton, so it's very hard to say. Like, this is a very friendly, very happy city.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's like it always has been. Even during the pandemic, people were like really happy and really friendly and really showing up for each other.
That's
so
awesome.
I think this is like the best city in the world, honestly. So I can't provide context based on this city, because it's like always been.
Okay, I'll just ask it like this. So it's basically been the same thing for you. It's been like the same. I'm not gonna say quite the same.
I wasn't here pre-pandemic, so I can't really. Well, it was for 6 months, I guess, but.
But you didn't. So for you, it wasn't like you didn't notice it. Like here, like coming back for me, people are more. I seem to be more comfortable in their isolation. Maybe again. This could just. I also realized this sincerely could be because I am such a different person than when I was before the pandemic, I just don't fit here anymore. And this is the universe or God's.
That's always a possibility.
Yeah.
It's like as you grow, you outgrow your surrounding cities. I mean, I've had that for sure, where, you know, I've just outgrown where I live, because this, again, you get pulled into the person you were. And this is, you know, again, going back to like, if you go back somewhere after 5 years, you've become a different person, but the city or the people might still see a version of you that doesn't really exist anymore. And so you just want to escape that version of you that people saw or knew, and you're like, well, I want to be a whole different person now. And so you need to leave a place sometimes just to be able to like start fresh.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's the next step for me, is I'm looking forward. So I'm trying to get my wonderful little bits of figuring out where I'm trying to get myself 2 more steady gigs. Right. And
we have to talk about my accolades now.
Oh geez, all of them?
All of them.
Yeah. That could be a long list. So she is a world-renowned freelancer. She has been published in pretty much any magazine you can think of. She's done it. She is an amazing talent. Her specialties
are. The New Yorker is still not. You know,
the New Yorker, you haven't done the New Yorker yet. So okay, so besides the New Yorker, if you've read it, she's been there, right? That's her. That's her. She's an amazing novelist. She's an amazing novelist, journalist. I don't know. Have you won any awards for any of your novels you've written? I don't know if you actually.
Well, I haven't published the novels. I've published 8 non-fiction books for writers. So it's a freelancing series that I've indie published. The novels are still unpublished. They're coming. They're going to happen next year, because I went down the traditional route, and then now I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm going to indie publish them next year.
So then,
yeah. And I have a business. Teaching writers, and I have a newsletter for writers. It's called thewordling.com, thewordling.com, and where every week we share basically what's happening in the freelance, in the writing industry, the freelance and the publishing industry. Thank you. And, you know, my basic mission in life, other than writing my own stories and telling my own stories, is to empower writers and basically give them all the resources they need to build profitable businesses. I've always said this, my catchphrase sometimes is, I have so many, but one of them is like, write like an artist and sell like a business person. Like, you cannot go out there. You need to see this as a business. If you want to be profitable, like if you're writing for fun and just, you know, for your own satisfaction, that's great, and nothing wrong with that. But if you want to make a career out of this, if you want to make a business out of this, then you have to really understand what's happening in the marketplace. And that's what we do every week, is show you what's happening in the marketplace, but then also understand how it impacts your business, because not everything does. If you're an indie author, the HarperCollins strike doesn't impact your business. If you're a traditionally published author, then what's happening on the Amazon side doesn't really necessarily impact your business directly. So, you know, learn what impacts your business, what your business is, and then how to make it super profitable. I'm all about writers making fuckloads of money and being completely free. That's my highest value, is freedom. And for me, I don't want to be ruled by a boss or a publisher or a tech company. I want to have my independence. And so that is what I work towards, and that is what I want other writers to have as well, to have that empowerment and that freedom. So
in my opinion, there's 3 kinds of writers. In my opinion, just to go on that. Writer number 1, I write for my passion. Yeah. Which is what, right? Writer number 2, this is the second category I found. I want to make money at writing, but I have other priorities. Right? There are writers out there who are very happy with their day jobs, who are very happy with their other things they're doing, or they just believe they had other priorities. And then there's number 3, which is what you're talking about. The one that actually wants to make money doing this, which is,
you want your writing to support you, basically. And I think you can be all of those 3 writers at different parts of your life and your career. I mean, I've definitely been all 3. You know, like there's definitely a time where I, you know, had more passion than business sense, and now I feel like I have both. So, you know, the passion never really goes away, hopefully. But I also feel like, there are times in your life, maybe you're looking after somebody who's sick, or maybe you have, a child or children, and then, writing might take a backseat, and that happens as well all the time. So, and again, this is not a straight trajectory. The writing life can be ups and downs. So you might find that you have to take on other things and other priorities at some point.
I just had this conversation last night. Good enough is not what people think it is. I learned this. This goes back to something we said. It's a secret before we continue our conversation. What it comes down to, I find, is how honest you are with the stories you want to tell. Like, are you telling the stories you genuinely care about? If you can do that, you can get into a traditional place. It's not impossible. I've been published in magazines. Natasha's definitely been published in magazines. She writes about the stuff she cares about, and then whatever, and that's
that's the stuff that made me the most money. It's so funny because people think you have to compromise, and the projects that I undertook that made the biggest difference also made the biggest money. And until I experienced it for myself, I wouldn't have believed it, because that's not what we're taught. We're taught that you have to compromise. We're taught that you have to do content for businesses or whatever. In order, you can do both. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but you don't have to make compromises if you don't want to. You just have to learn, though, how it works. You have to figure out what is the way in, and you have to figure out how to use your skill set in a way that people want it. You have to be able to sell yourself, I guess.
Well, actually, I would go one step further. It's not even so much skill set's important, not disputing that. It's how your values can be used. Because I like, for example, for me, I love telling stories, but I also love talking to people.
So are we talking books or freelancing here? Because I
think both, honestly.
Okay.
Because I think both, honestly. Because the thing is, okay, I love telling stories, but I also love how other people telling stories. There are books for that. Like there's memoirs, biographies. There's journalism pieces that you could actually do traditionally still about people that still sell to this day. Freelancing, there's advertising, there's marketing, there's a lot of avenues to, but it's about my value set. I want to create the best. When I'm telling somebody else's story, I want to represent people in the best possible light, which is probably why, for me at least, advertising makes more sense than say a book. But if I was really interested in somebody to such a degree that I wanted to know every single thing about them, I might consider writing a book about them, because I could tell a story about them that's very engaging because of how that person is to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, because sometimes as a journalist, you don't want to tell the most positive aspects of.
No, absolutely not. No. I again, that's a personal value thing, yeah. Right. That's not a. But let's say I'm such a fan of them, I still love them for all the good and the bad. Suddenly I can make something far more objective, and suddenly it becomes you can, like, again, on a personal level, I can like somebody and still have, I don't agree with it. I'm sure there are things we disagree about. I'm sure of it. That all said,
no,
right? No.
What are you saying? We've never had any arguments about anything.
Never. Not yet.
No, I do remember a stern email or two from you.
Yeah, mostly because you can do this, and that's basically why I said it's like, you can definitely do this.
Yeah.
But the thing is, right? Even though we primarily again, we're friends. There are going to be points we disagree. I'm still going to love you for who you are, my friend. Just because, exactly. Even in spite of, right? So that's the thing, right? Can you do that? And if I can do that, I can write that objective book. If I can't do that, I should stick in public relations, right?
Yeah, because I think I've worn a number of different hats. So I've done nonfiction books, I've done teaching, working with writers. I've been a journalist, and I've done content, and I've done a lot. If it's writing, I'm in, right? So I'll do anything as long as it's writing and it's enjoyable and fun for me. But that does mean that sometimes, like, when I have my journalist hat on, it will be different from the novelist hat, right?
Sure.
Like, so I think I do think differently in terms of, when I'm a journalist, I will think of storytelling in a different way, because as a journalist, my highest commitment is to the truth. And, you know, I try to take myself out of it. Whereas as a novelist, we just talked about this, as a novelist, or when I'm writing nonfiction or whatever, it's, even if without trying, I'm bringing myself into it. Whereas, you know, I'm bringing myself into it as a journalist as well. I know, but I try not to, you know, I mean, you can't, if
it's a secret. Absolutely.
Of course, we all bring our biases, our opinions, our experiences into everything we do. However, as a journalist, my highest value is truth, and as a novelist or as a nonfiction writer, my highest value is probably enjoyment for me and entertainment for you. Or if I'm writing a how-to book, then making sure that you get something out of it by the end of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, I think very logically about, why am I writing this other than my own satisfaction?
I'll go straight up. If you do a how-to, like as in a goofy cartoon, I'll pop. Like you'll make me go, okay, I'm in on both levels. You were entertaining and I learned something, right? But no, this is the thing, is it's not that different. It's just the goal, the audience is different, but it's not honestly that different. When I'm marketing,
at the end of it, most writing is all storytelling, and if you can tell an engaging story, that is entertainment. As It's a Secret is saying, it is entertainment. But I think freelance articles and marketing blurbs do provide entertainment as well.
Actually,
good ones
do, the best ones do. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I've seen some freelance magazine openings that made me laugh so freaking hard, because they're talking about, like, especially travel ones are my favorites, because they talk about places, but not in terms of the place itself, their experience of the place. And they can be anything from a wonderful experience, but the ones that really get me are the ones about their food, right? And learning the language, because there's such a real genuine experience that way. It's real. And I love that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that's me. Other people love different things about it, right? So, and you can only tell your story your way, but that doesn't stop. And again, doesn't matter whether it's marketing, freelance articles, novels, short stories, right?
I mean, the best marketing is stories. The best
absolutely.
Marketing stories.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that even
I mean, if you think about a blurb at the back of a book, it's trying to condense it's trying to catch your attention in 5 sentences, trying to get to the heart of the story again. And that's why people pick up books. It's like, oh, I like the cliffhanger here. I like in this, I'm going to get value out of this. I'm going to get entertainment out of this.
Well, blurb writing is like copywriting. Basically you're trying, but here's the difference. Copywriting is you're leading everybody across the bridge, right? Here, you're leading everybody to the edge of the bridge, and you're daring them to jump. That's the difference.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
You're daring them to jump. That's what you're doing. That's the big difference between them, is you're still leading them to a bridge, and they're going to be like, and then you stop, and they're like, and what? Wait, what happens here?
But I got really interested in Colleen Hoover recently, because she's been at the top of every like all her books are on all the bestseller lists and just basically dominating the world.
She's really good.
Talk about world domination. I mean, she's like, and I this is not my usual fare, but I was like, I'm going to pick up her books and I'm going to see what makes them work. Why is it like there's the people have tattoos of her character names? It's like crazy. It's like, why? I want to know why. What is the secret here? And I can't claim to understand the secret. It's Colleen Hoover. Are you asking about her name or my name?
Yeah.
It's Colleen Hoover. Yeah. So she's and I started reading a bunch of her books, and it's mystery, and I think that's the secret to every good piece of writing, is it's the question left unanswered, right? Like you ask a question, or you plant a seed in the reader's head, and they have to know how it finishes, and she does that brilliantly. I mean, some people do it better than others, but I was kind of in awe of how well she does that, but you don't even realize she's doing it. That's the magic, that's the trickery of her books, is that you don't even realize she's doing it.
Did I ever tell you about my first autograph signing?
So she's the next Jackie Collins. I think she's exceeded Jackie Collins. Actually, like 5 books on the New York Times bestseller list.
I don't think she's the next Jackie Collins. She's the first Colleen Hoover.
I love that. I was gonna say
yeah. So
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you my hilarious. Did I ever tell you about my first book signing?
No.
Okay, so This is Flake Josh in his early 20s that didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And what happened was I didn't advertise. And on top of that, the store I was standing at was a was an aromatherapy place that you couldn't normally have access to. No, this is what I did. This was also
I think I know this story, but go on, tell it to me because it's entertaining.
Yes. So what I did was I had the owner's son who was there with me. We printed up giant arrows and I taped them to the street. It is hilarious watching people actually follow the arrows right to the aromatherapy place. It worked. I learned that was probably one of the most important marketing lessons I've ever learned, right? Because it's not just the mystery, it's the interactivity. You're playing with your audience. You encourage people to, like I said this, if I'm trying to sell you something, your guard's going to be up. You're going to be like, oh no, what the hell is he going to do now? Right. Yeah. But if I go to you, do you want to play a game? You're like, okay. You're not saying no, Ray. You're like, what kind of game? You're actually halfway interested, but you're not committed yet because you don't want to jump into something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
But play with people and they'll play with you. And that I've learned that.
It's true. I mean, I've been selling online now for 20 years almost. No, is it 20 years? I think it's 10 years selling online, and before that selling to magazines and things like that, but selling directly for 10 years now. And one of the things, and I've had many product launches, some of them great, some of them not, and the difference, and the main difference in that is my energy and how I feel about something. If I am all in, I'm excited, I'm hyped, like I back myself and I believe in something, that is going to have way better results than when I'm unsure. And we come right back to that confidence where we started. But if I'm unsure, I'm like, will people like it? Will people not like it? And even though I know I love it, but my energy is kind of like not quite there, it will have an impact on sales. And so I found that the best marketing I can ever do is when I'm selling something, it's a book or a product or a pitch or anything, is to totally back it and believe in it and be buy into it, like be completely find a way to get my belief completely aligned with what that product is. Okay, I got distracted by the questions. I'm like,
so no, I did too. So book wise, actually, my biggest project success is my podcast. To answer your question, is Secret to 2022. I've gotten to the point where I regularly average 400 to 600 downloads a week, depending on it is. Some weeks I have broken 2,000 downloads in a week. So that has been my biggest claim to success. I have figured out how to make money on a podcast. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I figured that out. That's my biggest claim to success. My biggest book success would probably be Alice Zero. Okay. So I got published as in poetry, both traditionally and indie. The traditional books broke even, but considering that they're epic poetry, that's kind of cool that they broke even. My Alice book hasn't made a ton of money, but it's also been award nominated, right? So I can definitely give you that. That answers this. Just chalk and chats. I have this is 939. I have over 1,000 of them. You can go on my YouTube channel. You can listen to all of them, right? Even from when I sucked to when I've actually gotten to this. So there you go. All right, that's me. Dash?
Oh, me. Okay. Well, it depends on what we're talking about. So are we talking about books or business or freelancing? Well, I'll start with freelancing. I mean, I've always been a freelancer, but I was a correspondent for Time. I sold to the New York Times. I won awards for my journalism. I won a Journalist of the Year award for my journalism. I changed policy with my journalism. I was in India at the time. I had policy changes due to my journalism. And I made, a great income from freelancing, and taught a whole bunch of writers who thought they could never make an income, earn six figures and more from doing journalism that they loved, on topics on human rights and all sorts of things, which we're told, oh, you can't make money as a journalist. As a freelancer, not only did I make money, but I have hundreds of students who've been published in massive publications and make six figures or more. So that's as a freelancer. And then ties into the business. I've had a business now for 10 years. I've changed. I keep rebranding. So it started off as just under my name, and then it was The International Freelancer, and now it's The Wordling. I keep changing my mind. So, but I've created about 20 courses or workshops for writers. I'm bringing them back now. They're not for sale at the moment, but I'm actually updating and bringing them back this year and putting them into automation. And actually, like, I've created a student community and everything. So we're kind of bringing them all back. But I've made 20 courses, made loads, hundreds of thousands of dollars from that. You know, again, have thousands of students who've gone through those programs and, you know, gotten agents, sold books, sold lots of, you know, built content marketing careers, six-figure content marketing careers. So done that. And books is where my next step is, because I went the traditional way first. I've had 4 agents, 4 literary agents, all of them, like, I would send a pitch and then within a month I've signed with agents and had multiple offers, and then I've gotten to choose my agents. And I had 2 agents at the same time, one in New York and one in London, for 2 different books, because I don't believe in having one agent. I believe in having one agent for one book. Show me what you can do, and then we'll see.
And that's something I learned from Tash. I never would have thought of that until she told me. It's like, that makes so much sense. Why wasn't I that smart?
Why would I commit my whole career to you when we've never worked together and I don't know whether you're going to deliver or not? As it happens, no, there was no, you know, sales. So so I've now decided, and also it's not because there was no sale that I've decided this, because I'm a very persistent person. I think I would continue pushing it until I got my result. But I realized that, and Josh said this to me actually, is like, my personality is just so suited for being in indie, because it's like, I like control, I like numbers, I like to know, did this marketing effort work? I was just reading a thread on Twitter where, you know, lots of traditionally published authors don't know how many books they sold in the year. I know by day how many books I sold. Like, I have 8 books for writers. I didn't mention that. I've written 8 books for writers, all indie published, all Amazon bestsellers. I think, no, 7 out of the 8 were Amazon bestsellers. And they're only as ebooks. I didn't put them out as print, which again we're doing this year. But so I realized that I like to know the impact of my marketing. I like to interact with my readers. I want my books to also become more than, like, I want them to fit into my business. I want them to fit into my business as a whole as well. So I realized that I want to be, I'm not targeting the India market. I'm just global. I am from India. I live in the UK now. When I was a freelancer, I was working in India. Then I moved to the UK, started working in the UK. But no, I don't think of my market as any one country. I think of my market as
those who engage in your stories.
The world. Yeah, people who.
And that's how you should be looking at it. And
I mean, my story, like my novels are set in India and the UK. Like, I have the novel I'm going to publish next year. It's half set in India and half set in London. So you could say that I'm targeting the India or the UK market, but no, you read Indian novels, right? Like, I'm sure people read books set all over the world. Why wouldn't you? So I think and that's what I had a website called The International Freelancer. It wasn't about just international freelancer, however you define that. It was somebody who's globally minded, somebody who thinks of the world as their readership, not as one country. Because when I came to the internet in 2002, it was very US and UK centric. And yeah.
So I'm going to say 2 things here. First off, a little bit. So if you, I'm going to be very, very honest with you. It's a secret 2022. Tash is far more successful than I am. And I'm going to say, and I say this with all respect, because she's done it for a long time. She's believed in herself in a long time. And one of the reasons I love having her on the show is because I learn from her a lot. That's why I like having her on the show. The other thing is also, if there's any, like, there are lots of people, when you look at, when I go on LinkedIn and stuff like that, from where she's from now, trying to break into these markets, she's just living proof that it can be done, and it can be done successfully and well. And lastly, just because, and this is something we talked about earlier, when you write your stories, you're writing your story, right? So it makes sense that your books are featured in Britain and India, because those are where you've experienced things. Just
well,
like
that's why, that's where I'm from. So I know the
culture.
I love telling India stories, but also I think there's a gap in the market in that Indian women are seen as a certain way that I don't agree with. I mean, when you say Indian woman, nobody thinks badass. I'd like to change that, please.
I no, you yeah,
So
I totally like if for what it's worth, I totally think of you as a gangster. I
oh,
like
thank you.
I totally do. I
But you
totally
know,
do.
with this, like all of this, like, oh, impoverished women, or you know, like this sort of,
No,
there's a whole narrative around that that I would really like to change, and so my novels do that, I hope.
I,
um
also, anybody listening to this, if you talk to anybody that's from there, some of the most,
it's not true.
it's not even remotely true. They might, legitimately speaking, like people from some of the most educated people I've ever met are from India, the Middle East, right? India, the Middle East. Uh, even some of the more civilized African countries, and like these, like some of the most independent critical thinkers I've met are from all those parts of the world.
And it's not about a country, right? There's loads of different types of
Oh,
people.
absolutely. No,
But I think
so
when I
true.
went to the traditional publishing path, with my first novel, it was about a teacher who wears saris and smokes weed all the time, and they just couldn't wrap their head around a sari wearing teacher smoking weed all the time, and it just like it just blew their mind. It didn't fit into the stereotype of what or India or women, or like it could, I couldn't sell that novel. I have to bring it out on my own. But it's because there's a stereotype about, oh, if she smokes weed or if she's modern, then she must wear jeans. If she's if she's wearing a sari, then she's traditional, and there's all this kind of bullshit around this stuff. So I don't actually think of it as a region or a you know, place. I think of it as people who like my energy, who like my stories, who are open to reading about the world. But really, it's about being open to you know, they'll probably see in me, they'll either, you know, they'll, if you like the way I talk, if you like the way I speak, if you like who I am, then you'll probably like my stories, most likely. If all of this turns you off, then the characters in my book will probably turn you off as well, because they have come from me. So like my heroines are deeply flawed, make a lot of stupid mistakes, but are also like cool Indian women, who, you know, think of the world as their own. They don't feel like less than any other person anywhere, and they don't identify as, I don't think of myself as in, like, I am going to have a British passport soon, and it's messed with my head a lot because I have to give up my Indian citizenship, and then it's like, am I Indian? Am I British? And it's like, I'm all of it, all of it. I'm 100% Indian and 100% British. I don't have to choose anymore. So yeah, so those are the themes I then, you know, discuss and go through in my novels as
Actually,
well.
here's an interesting question. And I hope that this is was okay. I asked this from your upbringing in India. Was English your first language?
No, no.
Which one was it?
Hindi.
Okay, so can I ask this, because you've been in Britain for a long time? Do you still think in Hindi, or do you still think or do you think in English?
It's interesting because so Hindi is my first language, my home language, but then
Yeah.
school was English. So I had a home name and a school name as well. So it's
Oh,
like,
wow. Okay, yeah. Okay,
it's like
no.
completely split down the middle,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Okay, so okay, because I asked this because I do know this. I know people who have. Again, my grandmother's Maltese, so when she came to the United States, now she thinks completely in English now, but it took a
Yeah.
long time to get to that point, right? But
No, I think for me, it's both feel very natural because I grew up learning English from the age of 5. Until the age of 5, I didn't. But from the age of 5 in school, I learned English at school, a different version, I guess. Well, as in like English, and you know, which is English, but we just put our own words in as well, and
what
which is
English
always the
is.
best.
Yeah. No,
But yeah, now I was very comfortable with English from pretty early on, and I did spend a few years of my early years in England as well. So I spent 3 years, 4 years in the UK when I was
oh,
from
wow.
5 to 9. Went from 5 to 9.
So it's like getting you ready to come here eventually. That's kind of cool.
Well, that's partly why I did, because I always, when they took me back to India, I was like, no, I will come back one day, and then I did.
You
So
did.
I always wanted to come back. I'd always wanted to come back.
No, that's cool. That is a cool. I learned something. I learned something new. Before we wrap this bad boy up, I want to again 3 things. thank you very much for everything you've done for me. I honestly,
Thank you.
yeah, again, when I started freelancing, I was looking for people that I could relate to. I love how genuine you are. And I don't, again, I get why you doubt yourself a little bit. Again, I've been on this road now for a while too.
What
Yeah.
kind of people would we be if we didn't? Like nobody.
Yeah.
Know it,
But
right?
you're incredible. You're
Thank you.
legitimately, absolutely incredible. And I want to thank you for every time you've come on. I want to thank you for the opportunity to learn. Because again, as much as I have the blessing of being able to talk to so many authors. So my opinion gets this amalgamation of all these experiences, not just mine, but others. And yeah, you're one of the best learning trees I've ever come across. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for kicking my ass and telling me that I should just go out on my own. And I'm going to do that now. So.
Yeah. No, and I can't wait. I legitimately can't wait. So what would you like to promote here before we wrap this bad boy up?
Well, I only have one thing to promote, and that is my website, The Wordling, which is a weekly newsletter where I scour hundreds of websites every week to bring writers the best business news that would be relevant to their businesses. Basically, my mission in life, other than telling my own stories, like I said, is to help writers be able to tell theirs, but not from a place of suffering or scarcity. I want writers to make lots of money, be completely free, and tell their stories and live their lives on their own terms. That is what I'm doing for myself, and that is what I want other people to have as well. Because when you are free and when you have the freedom financially, emotionally, mentally, physically to feel that way, that is when you tell the truest stories, and that is when we get the best art. And I would like, for my own selfish sake, to get the best art, but I also want writers to really feel like they're know their value and know that their stories are wanted, and help bring them out into the world. So if in any way I can help people or support them, I am always open. My emails are always open. Feel free to email me. Feel free to get in touch with me. I'm very slow with email, but
if she likes you, not as slow.
What is the last time you added to that newsletter? A week ago, I think. So you might want to check. It's thewordling.com.
She usually comes out she usually comes out to answer your question on Thursdays, and every once in a while she'll miss a week here and there. But
happened today, actually.
Yeah. So, but most Thursdays, I would say this.
I'm getting I am really consistent with it. I actually missed 2 Thursdays for a good reason that I will no, it's 2. It's 2.
No. I know you don't know what I'm saying. She's usually most months 3 out of 4 guaranteed.
No, from now on it's going to be 4 out of 4, but I missed the 2 last week because it was on purpose, and I'm going to explain that in the next one because
No, it's fine. Now you talk. Yeah,
but yeah, it comes out weekly on Thursday, and basically I scour the internet for all the publishing news and whatever, and then there's usually a note from me, something I like to motivate, and I like to talk, as you can tell. So hopefully you can check it out and see if you find it interesting. That's it.
Yeah, and she's had so far, I think 8 this year.
Oh, okay. You're looking at my website, natasharelph.com. So thewordling.com is where you want to go. It's a secret. You're looking at my personal website, and that hasn't been updated. So you want to go look at thewordling.com. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And the newsletter, I guarantee you, I get them fairly regularly. So
if you sign up to the Natasha Relph page, there's nothing happening at the moment, though. I am gonna do something with that in the next few months. There's a big project coming there, but for now, the Wordling is where it's at.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. On that note, ladies. And since you asked so nicely, I'll tell you what I will do here, because I'm doing this live because I'm a trained professional. They legit give me an award for this, folks. They really, really did. I don't know why, but they legitimately did. So I'm going to release this. Okay, show on a second here. I'm trying to clean it up so it's nice and clean and stuff. So,
there we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my latest book release. It's called Alice Zero. It's Alice in Wonderland mashed up with Greek mythology. The first 2 books are written by yours truly, and they're illustrated by her now name is Kenzie Katz. She's gotten married. Mackenzie Carwood really killed this. The first book here was nominated for the Elgin Award. So, hey, that was pretty cool. I'm hoping to have, I'm actually planning on doing my first ever graphic novel sometime this year. So that's scary because I'm drawing it. Just for now, just Amazon. We didn't talk about it this time. There are pros and cons to choosing your outlets, right? There are pros. Some books better suited just going exclusively Amazon. I'm in the sci-fi kind of YA realm. Amazon is honestly my best place. I kind of shrug. So
we didn't get into this either, and maybe that's a conversation. Well, that is definitely a conversation for another time. But I'm going into direct selling now as well. More.
Which, by the way, works. I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't knock it. What it comes down to for me, it's a secret, is you've got to be ready for it. And I have other goals right now.
Yeah.
When I'm ready for it, no, it's going to be direct selling because honestly, the biggest money is there.
Definitely.
Yeah, you're right.
I've done direct sales. They're way more profitable.
They're way more profitable, but you have to be no.
They're higher. The profit margins are higher in direct selling. It's just that you don't get the discoverability that you get from like Amazon or other places because you don't have the algorithms.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to be ready for it because if you don't have your ducks in a row,
you want a system. Yeah.
If you don't have your ducks in the row, you will get killed. It's right. You will get
you'll
killed.
have a lot of disappointed readers and a big inbox full of emails. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So fair warning: be ready. If you decide to go that route, know what you're doing, and not know what you're doing.
No, direct selling through your website or through like being the seller directly of your books. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But have your ducks in a row because if you don't, anyway. I'll wrap up for today, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much,
Natasha.
George.
Yeah. Have yourselves a wonderful day. I will be back next week. And our pleasure. It's a secret. I'll be back next week. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys.
I will see you in London next year.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you will. We'll talk about it right after we get off the air, actually. Take care.
Bye.